This show is sponsored by Sevi, answering all your commercial real estate needs. Sevi is the first commercial real estate company committed to the 4 C's: commercial real estate, community, content, and culture. Go visit Sevi at Sevi, SEVI, properties.com. Again, SeviProperties.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. We have Kara Redman. Kara is the founder and CEO of Backroom. Welcome to the show, Kara.
Hey there. Thanks for having me.
Of course, the pleasure is all mine. You know, in case someone's listening to this and they're like, Backroom, what is that? What do they do? If you can just give us a brief general overview as far as what you folks do there.
Yeah, for sure. We are a brand strategy agency. So we help brands go to market, launch, grow, acquire, get acquired. Essentially, we support through brand strategy, messaging, and advertising at different stages of the life cycle for a brand, whether they're pre-seed or looking to IPO. We look at brand metrics first.
I love that. Can't wait to get into how you even come about getting into this industry. But before that, are you originally from DC, Maryland, Virginia area?
Yeah, I grew up in Anne Arundel County. I'm now in
Okay.
Baltimore.
Okay. Oh, nice. So I always grew up in Anne Arundel. You know, if I can briefly take you for a moment back then, like what were you into growing up as a child? Any things you liked, or what you do outside of school?
I was sort of an athlete band geek growing up, so I was always into learning new things. I played the saxophone for about 12 years. I still play here and there for fun, and I was a cross-country runner in high school. So not a super social person, but I got out of school what I wanted. And I think that's sort of the entrepreneurial journey, right? Is we don't always do very well in school, but have our own idea of what we want to get out of things.
When did you get into cross country?
My sophomore year.
Okay, so high school. Okay.
hmm
The reason I'm asking, I have 3 boys, and just for the first time, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, all 3 of them started for the first time cross country. And they were all just complaining. I mean, oh my God, this is horrible. My legs. Actually, today I'm taking into cross country practice. They're all younger though than my oldest is just turned 13.
Yeah, I'd say at any age, if you're just getting started out in distance running, the complaints are valid. It takes some adjusting, but once you're adjusted, it's almost an addiction. You hurt to not run. So it's with time, it becomes almost habitual.
I hear that with a lot of runners. It is an addiction. I've personally never been a runner myself, but I do like to work out, mostly resistance training and some cardio, but not in a running form. But yeah, I mean, I know people who is like, I have to run every day. It's like it's an addiction. It's an obsession.
Yeah.
Do you still run yourself?
Occasionally, but mostly I put a lot of my effort into my agency and growing my team and really trying to help the clients that we have here at Backroom.
Sure. So I grew up in Anne Arundel, and I guess after high school, what happened afterwards?
That's a broad question, but I worked and moved around a little bit. I worked for several agencies in the DMV area before starting my own in 2014. And I've been doing this for over a decade now. So I did everything from social to web strategy to just general marketing strategy for a couple of different agencies around town. And found that what was missing was this central theme of growing an actual brand rather than just looking at specific metrics. And the old agency model was somewhat dying, right? So I've been doing this for a long time now and have learned a lot of lessons and have been incredibly humbled and what I would see for my bosses doing, going like, how hard could this be? And then started my own, and it's like starting a cross country routine. It's difficult and your legs hurt. So that's what I've been doing since.
Sure. Did you just happen to get into agency work, or were you proactively like, hey, I think this might be of interest of me, or how did that come about as far as just getting overall into industry?
Yeah, I worked in-house for a long time first. I just thought that the whole agency world seemed really exciting, and the fast pace and the cool offices and the creative teams that worked in there I thought were really fun. You see the glamour of an industry before you're in it, and then you realize it's work. But I think there is still a lot of fun and excitement in the agency world. I love the fast pace, getting to work with a lot of different clients, make sure that you're, always staying fresh with it. But worked in-house for, gosh, I don't know, most of my career, and started working in agency in about 2010.
Oh, okay. So you were in-house at first?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, if people listening to this and they're not familiar with the marketing world and agency, when you say in-house, you're handling the marketing for a company, correct?
Yeah, your brand side. So you're not working with a professional services firm, you're working with the actual brand.
Okay. And how was that as far as working with the brand itself?
It's just a different experience. When you're working on one specific brand or product, you are going deeper. So you have one singular focus. You're typically more tied to operations and business goals when you're working brand side than agency. So it's just a different experience than working with multiple clients at once.
And then you decided to go to the agency world.
Correct.
And I guess so you loved it so much that that's what you're doing. And very different than from just focusing on one product or one brand per se, compared to now having multiple clients, right?
That's correct.
Was that transition easy for you or hard, or how was that?
I think any transition from one job to the other requires a level of onboarding. So, I mean, there's certainly, I don't know that it was any different going from working in-house to an agency the first time. Um, Marketing is marketing kind of wherever you are. It's just whether or not you're working with one or multiple products.
Okay. Now, what you do at Backroom, is it specifically an industry or niche you like to focus on, or pretty much broad?
We're very broad. So we have a dog food company that we work with. We work with B2G. We work with a lot of tech startups. We work with a lot of more seasoned tech companies that are in acquisition mode. So we are very broad with the industries that we work with, but the common thread is we work with really passionate people who are trying to build something and need a team to support them on the marketing and growth side.
I love that. You've now had Backroom for how long?
Over 10 years.
And
Yeah.
starting off, if I can just take you 10 years ago when you decided to start Backroom, or it was an idea, you decided, let me hang out my shingle and go at this. How was that the first year?
I think the first year is really tough for any business owner. There's a lot of uncertainty. I can't speak for everyone, but I know a lot of my fellow founder friends have tended to share my experience that we started our businesses with a lot of emotion. There's a lot of, I think, passion that goes into taking that leap, and it's a lot of faith. So the first year is a little bit more reactionary than strategic as we are now. We're really just trying to find clients and trying to make sure that we're differentiating and starting to establish a name. And then once you start to build that momentum, things, I won't say they get easier, it's just a different set of problems, right?
Yeah. Was it easy getting those first couple of clients?
None of it's easy. And I think that I think the important part of, getting the first clients is with my experience, I wasn't starting from nothing. I have worked my whole career to build a network, right? And I have
Yeah.
relationships and people who have faith in me from the work that I had done working for other people. So it was really about, tapping my network. And I think for the right person, it's not hard because, when you're growing and you're excited and you have people who believe in you, it's easier to ask for favors than if you haven't done that upfront work, right? So being able to draw on the people that wanted to see me succeed and make those connections was for me the easiest path, and it worked. So
Yeah. No, I tend to agree. I'm actually going through that right now, just because earlier this year I went off on my own and started my own commercial real estate company. And, before that, the previous firm I was with for almost 13 years, but like you said, relationships. So you build a track record, and you were building it before. I was building it for 13 years. And now when you go off on your own, you can just pick that back up, because at the end, people, in my personal opinion, like to do business with people. It's not what's the name behind you, right?
yeah, congratulations, by the way, on starting your own venture.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
How's your first year going?
It's going great. It's going good. Like you were just saying earlier, it's helpful that I've been in the industry for all this time. I can't imagine just fresh going into something with no experience, no relationships, and it's tough. It would be probably very tough.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's good. So having such a rich career, Kara, in this industry, what would you say drives and motivates you today?
It changes all the time, actually. I don't know if it's the seasons changing or what, but the things that have driven me over the summer are a little lackluster to me at the moment. So I think entrepreneurship and life in general are very cyclical, right? So the things that we get really excited about and push forward with, sometimes you achieve those goals and go, now what, right? And so you have to kind of refeed and especially being a business owner, I'm sure you understand this, and being a business owner yourself, there's a lot of output. And so a lot of times I'll sit and go, I am uninspired and I don't want to show up and do the, appearance or the client meeting or the talk or whatever it is, because I don't feel like I have anything to give. And so I've been very fortunate to have a really rich network of intelligent people and creative and curious people who will recommend, really good books or people to follow or someone that I should meet. And so I think what it comes down to is, community, shared knowledge, people, the idea that business is a means to grow and learn and to connect with other people. I think when we get really hung up on just the numbers of business, it can be very uninspiring. But if we're excited about how we get to those numbers and the things that we learn along the way, I think that's really what it's all about. It's just, I know a lot of folks are like me in that once you learn something, you do it and you're successful, it's like, cool, now what? And you have to kind of go and look for the next area of growth with some pauses for rest in between.
Yeah. No, that's great. You just mentioned just now, as far as, there's moments as far as entrepreneurship where, you might be down or for whatever reason, something didn't go your way. So what you use, Kara, is you said I guess you connect with other people that maybe inspire you or books. Is that what helps you sort of get you out of that funk or whatever?
Yeah, and sometimes it's a little painful too, right? Because I think our brains get into these almost like a vibe, like a wavelength, and it doesn't want to do anything else, right? So you come back from vacation and all you can think about is your vacation, or like you're really into work and all you can think about is work. And my brain struggles to transition. So sometimes this morning is a great example. I go for a walk every morning and I've just been feeling really uninspired. And I remembered that somebody in our private community had mentioned a book that looked really interesting to read. So I just, downloaded it on Audible while, my dog was eating grass or whatever she was doing. I listened to it and just a couple chapters in, I felt fed in a way. So sometimes it's not an excitement to go learn a new thing. It's what would your parents tell you to do if you had to get up and go to school and do your homework? It's creating those routines of discipline so that you're constantly learning and not getting stagnant, which I think as we get older becomes easier to just sort of, marinate in the stuff that we already know and not take anything new in.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, that's one of the reasons too. I mean, what helps me, and I can feel it if I don't do it, is when I try to work out every morning. And when I work out, I used to listen to podcasts or because I've always been into business or finance or commercial real estate. But then it's pretty hard for me to not concentrate while I'm trying to do a rep of whatever weight. So I was like, okay, this is not working because I'm trying to learn and at the same time focusing on what number I'm in.
Mhm.
So now it's more motivation or something like that while I'm listening to in the background while I'm working. And that just gets my mind right. So I'm working on my body, but at the same time, my mind. So when I go afterwards and attack the day, it just helps me so much more because like you said, we're always running against walls. And as an entrepreneur, we sort of have to zig and zag through that, right?
That's very true. And I think we are in this society where it's like, oh, I'm just going to, do 2 for 1 and I'm going to work out and learn at the same time and check both of these boxes. And we've forgotten that our brains heal and process and make, cognitive connections for us when we're letting them rest. Like we let our bodies rest more than our brains, I feel like. So, being able to actually almost meditate while you're working out, right? Because you
Hmm.
can't achieve this meditative state if you're focused and you're aware of your breath and you're aware of your posture and in your case the number of reps, that your brain is doing really good work for you too, and actually distilling and filing away the knowledge that you've gotten in other parts of the day. So I agree. I think we just get in this like constantly have to maximize every moment so that we're these like machines. And do we? And is that the right approach? Right? Is it always just intake, 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 and output, 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 or can we just exist and be? And that's for me. That's when good things happen. That's when the good ideas come. That's when I get a little serotonin. Right? So being able to rest, I think, is incredibly crucial to that.
Speaking about good ideas, do you ever come across, throughout the day, whether you're walking or doing something else, and a good idea comes? What do you do when that happens?
I do. Sometimes I'll just pop it into, I use, notes apps on my phone or do
Okay.
a quick voice memo. Sometimes I'll just think about it. Sometimes I'll call a member of my team. It depends on where I am really and whether or not I want to disrupt that idea flow. If I'm,
Okay.
out with friends or on a walk, of course, I'm not gonna, have a phone call with somebody. A lot of the times really good ideas I think come from consuming the content of others. So, we love to think that all of our ideas are original, but like the inspiration that we draw from just the social aesthetic around us is, I think, very powerful. So I think being very discerning about the types of content that you take in, and then allowing those ideas to flow and capturing them in ways that you can actually do something with. But for me, it's just usually a notes app, nothing special.
You were just mentioning now also, as far as sometimes contacting a team member. I'm sure when you started Backroom 10 years ago, was it just you by yourself wearing all the hats, or did you start with some type of team?
I started with some type of team. It's a good way to
Okay.
describe it. I had a designer that, I don't have the creative background for like Photoshop and actual logo design. So I've always had someone on the creative side supporting me, and then also had an engineer supporting in the beginning. We had a lot more web development in our capabilities, which I've since sunsetted out of our capability set. But it's usually been 1 to 2 people supporting me on things, and now we've grown and my job looks a lot different.
How does your team look like now?
Well, we have everything from, of course, project management and senior strategy, illustration, animation, art direction, content, social media and influencers, paid and programmatic. So we're full service now. What's the interesting and sad thing when I know it's the goal, right, for the founders, it's like I don't know really, I don't understand what they all do all the time, right? Because they're so smart and they have capabilities that are far outside of what I have. So it's been a really beautiful and humbling thing to see like the business get so much bigger than me. And people will ask in sales calls, like, well, how much of you do we get? I'm like, well, you get me, but like you don't want me, right? So I will help with the overall vision, but my team is the secret sauce.
Sure. And is your team local, or they're just everywhere?
No, we've always been remote. We've always been fully remote. So I've got people in Chicago and North Carolina, and I want to say Philly, but she just moved back to Savannah. One of our people just finished an internship with Anthro, Houston. So we're all over the place.
Speaking about remote teams, how do a lot of people had to do that because of COVID. How do you go about, I guess, managing that, or just fostering the right community and atmosphere?
This is such a hard one because I only know what works for me.
Mhm.
Like one of my early jobs, I worked at a makeup counter, and I realized really quickly I had no business being there because I knew how to do my makeup, but I learned I did not know how to do anyone else's. And I feel the same way in business. There's just not a one size fits all. Our culture, I think, is unique. And I started this company because I didn't like operational systems where I was other places and how employees were treated. And so we're very intentionally different. So what works for us, like probably won't work for a lot of people. I think, I do think that there are a lot of systems that can change to make remote work possible for more employers. I do think a lot of leaders get a bad rap because the employees have to be good for remote work too, right? And we've all got that friend that's like, I gotta go to the office, man. Like my kid's always running around, or like I get distracted by laundry. And not everybody thrives in that environment. We struggle with certain things. There's no perfect blue sky solution anywhere, but we have ongoing fun days. We actually this morning just ended up voting on, and we're doing our fun day on the 26th, and everyone's coming with a 5-minute presentation of their life, and we're just presenting something about our lives that is fun. Everyone gets a snack box, so we find ways to connect on that level. Another team member is going to be in New York in November, so 2 of us are going to pop up and see her for the day. So we find, just like if you had a friend group that was all across the country, right? How do you stay connected? You respect each other, you keep each other up to date, you have shared goals and vision together, and you see each other when you can. So I think in person is always best, I think, in terms of being able to interact with people. But I don't think that the value of that outweighs the great benefit that you get from having more of a global network of talent to choose from and their mental health when they work.
Hmm. Speaking of the topic of team, obviously having the right team is important, having them in the right role, placing them, in the right seat in the bus per se. How do you even go about finding the right team members and putting them in the right position?
We are incredibly intentional about our job descriptions and our interview questions. So I think that being able to know the value system and the traits you're looking for that will make a good employee on your team, and then knowing how to ask the right questions, to read body language, to understand nuance, to understand beyond skill set. Is this person going to function well here? Are they going to thrive? And I think it's increasingly more difficult in today's career climate because of job scarcity, that more people are willing to fake what they think you want to hear to get work, because I get it. Like, it's a desperate situation. Like, you got to pay your mortgage, right?
Hmm.
And so I think being able to, number one, know what you want and not just hire like, oh, I thought that, it was really cool, so I'm just going to hire them and everything's going to be fine. Like, that's how we've hired in the past, and it doesn't work as a society. So knowing what you want, knowing what makes a good culture fit, knowing the skills that you need, knowing how to measure that person's performance, and then know what questions you need to ask to determine if they're the right fit. And even that's not perfect, right? You still have to try them out because people are people and life is life. So I think that, it's such a cliche, but the people part is the hardest part of business by far, because it comes with the most variables and unpredictability.
Now that you mentioned trying out, I just remembered, I have some clients that sometimes do a 90-day trial period in the beginning. Do you have anything like that or no?
No, if it's not working, it's not working.
Okay.
I I I I don't want to say that that doesn't work for anyone. It wouldn't work for us because we are a forward looking, and I want to bring people on my team that are looking to build something with us and have an investment in one another. So it becomes a method of trust, right? That
Hmm.
you're coming in to help us do this thing. We're going to deliver on the promises that we made to you in this job description and our job offer, and like, let's go create things together. I think it's more about more frequent check-ins within that first 90 days. I believe strongly that the first 3 months is just like figuring out which way is up in any job. And doing really frequent check-ins on is it working for you? Is it working for us? Like, here's what maybe was a surprise. Here's what we can edit and adopt. And if you have a mentality of wanting to collaborate and build with your team versus this is the rigid rule set and you're either meeting it or you don't, then you're able to be really flexible and maybe even expand things that you hadn't thought of in terms of what you can build together.
That's great. Working with different clients and brands, what do you see, Kara, that a lot of them are doing wrong?
I like to be careful with this question because I'm not the authority on anybody's ship of my own, right? Like, so I do think that having a culture of treating grown adults like their children is really a large reason why I left and started my own. I think that we have this sort of antiquated mentality in corporate America that it's a gift to be employed by somebody, when the reality is it's a mutually beneficial transaction. And the mentality of I pay you, so then XYZ, I think has been abused quite a bit. I think it continues to be abused. And I think it's even more so in today's climate where people don't have options to leave. Where 15 years ago, I could have left and gotten another job relatively easily compared to today. So I think that when we stop caring about people, I think when we start seeing people as transactions and cogs and wheels and not understanding the value that they bring to us, it's a very dangerous place to be. I'll say, to be have a little more specificity to your question, is when leadership themselves doesn't have a clear matrix for understanding their business goals and how employee performance rolls into that. And so then performance becomes very subjective and based on that manager or leader's mood is really prevalent. And it's unfortunate because a lot of really good talent are quitting and taking huge pay cuts just to not deal with that when they could be producing all this really wonderful, beautiful work.
Yeah, culture is huge, and yeah, your management style.
I agree.
You know, if someone comes to you and they wanted to start their own business, you know, you started Backroom 10 years ago. You deal with some companies in startup stages. What advice would you give them? Maybe they want to be an agency, maybe they want to be in totally different industry, maybe tech, non-tech related, doesn't matter. Any pointers?
Talk to people that think you're going to fail, talk to people who have done it successfully, talk to people who have done it and failed and think that it's a horrible idea. Talk to potential clients, talk to as many people as you can, because number one, you're going to build your network, people are going to know what you're doing, and you're going to learn so much. And when I say talk to people, I mean more listen to people, of course,
Mm-hmm.
which is difficult, like going in and really considering who do I know in my network I can use for research. And then to add on to that, product market fit is one of the most underlooked things that we have people coming to us with ideas and vision, and this is what we're going to do. And there's been no market testing. There's been no surveying to see, is there someone else who's done this? Is there, we had someone come to us with this great idea. And I'm like, that's cool. We worked with a startup that did this last year and they failed. Like, what are you doing differently? And they were like, who? Like they hadn't even looked, right? So they just repeat history. So I think it's really how do we take all this passion and vision we have and the excitement and keep it, like sustain all of that, because it's going to make your business fly, but also counter that with data and talking to people and researching and understanding and having humility in that, because you're going to hear some things you're going to be like, shit, I didn't think about that, but you're right. Now I have to go and change this, or my vision might have had a flaw. Is my biggest advice. And I think one of the most underappreciated parts of starting a business.
Kara, you have such a great social media following. How that even started? How did that come about?
Like January of last year, I just started posting, and I think people resonated with some of the things that I had to say. And I, listened to them and built relationships. And, I did a cohort to teach some of my, what I'll call my playbook, on LinkedIn. But I think it really comes down to taking those tactics and actually, caring about people and understanding the pain that they're experiencing and being able to give voice to that and some solutions. So, there's not really any like secret sauce to it. It's an outlet for me. And it's where I show up and can vent about or share my knowledge and build community.
You've had quite a few posts that have gone viral with millions and millions of views, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And some of them wasn't even specifically talking about what you do. I think it was something else you might have happened, to talk about.
Yeah,
Do
I mean,
you,
I give away advice on there that's like stuff people pay us a lot of money for, and it gets like just a little bit of stuff. People like the good stuff, right? They like the stuff that's that quick meme type vibe of I feel seen or this made me laugh. It's that emotional connection I think that people are looking for, just being able to feel something by looking at content. And I think it gets a bad rep, sort of the memey fun content, but I think it's what makes us feel connected and seen, and like we share some level of social fabric through our experiences. And I think it's needed more now than ever because we're still so disconnected from this pandemic, right?
if an business executive is listening to this, or CEO founder, and they want to make more of a proactive approach in building their own personal brand, because before it was basically just the company facing forward, what would you suggest? They wanted to grow their social media presence on LinkedIn or other platforms.
I will call us because that's what we do. We help with that. So Backroom can absolutely help you put together a personal brand framework and an editorial calendar. But essentially it's not about the content publishing. It's about having an understanding of your audience so deeply on an emotional level that the content almost writes itself. And I think people want some sort of playbook for like best times of day to post and like what keywords to use and should I use a photo? And those are just tactics. Good messaging, really good messaging that hits the heart of people can have typos. It can be text only. It can be the wrong time of day. And I think people want the shortcut. So if you are one of the 1% of people, I think, that publish on LinkedIn out of 800 million users, and you can actually speak to a real problem that your customers or your audience have in a way that's meaningful, you're doing better than most.
Yeah. As business owners, there's roadblocks, there's up and downs, as we were discussing earlier. Is there, let's say, a favorite setback or fail that maybe you went through, and what did you learn from that?
Who has a favorite fail? Not me. I don't want any of them. I don't know that there's like a specific one. I think it's just to let it be a favorite fail. The cool thing about failing is the moment where a connection point happens and you're like, oh my God, that's why that happened. I'm never going to do, and you learn something. It's a cool experience, but I've done some really cringy stuff when 2024 Kara looks back at like even 2016 Kara 2 years in, I'm like, oh, it's so embarrassing. You hope nobody remembers. But I think the biggest thing is like the biggest failure for me that has been hardest to step into, and it's been a consistent one, is really like stepping into value and really understanding that what we do and what we have people value, and not second guessing as much. I think the founder mindset is there's a lot of self-reflection, second guessing, imposter syndrome that kind of comes into it. And I wish that I had had the skills to dismiss that thought pattern faster when we were younger as a business.
That happens. Does that ever leave? Does that ever go away?
I hope not, because I think that I've learned to use that feeling as a tool to evaluate and go, wait, where's this feeling coming from? Is this old limited beliefs, or is there something here I don't know and it's a growth opportunity? And I think if we don't have these internal sort of compass emotions that we tend to describe as negative feelings, that we're incomplete and we're not really learning and growing. So I really think that it was Jane Birkin who said that like a life like this is way more interesting, right, than just a very consistent one.
Yeah.
And I think for those of us who really want to have a whole full life, you kind of want the imposter stuff too, because it's humanity, right? It's what keeps you true to what you're doing.
Yeah. No, that's true. What do you do from a marketing standpoint that helps drive traffic to the business?
We're not so good at that for ourselves. We have a really steady, healthy pipeline of inbound. We've been really fortunate with my personal brand, and my LinkedIn serves up about 80% of the business that we have, which is great for us because we do most of our business outside of the DMV.
Hmm.
So we have a really nice international network of folks that we work with, from Singapore to Chicago to, a couple here locally. So for us, it's been more about, we're a branding agency. It's more about the brand and the message. And we never run like paid ads or, bought email lists or anything like that.
But what I do love to hear is that you said over 80% of your business comes from LinkedIn, which is great. It's just to show you that social media works. Just because in my industry, commercial real estate, which is sort of seen as old and stodgy, when you mention people, I do LinkedIn or I post here or Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, and then they look, you waste your time with that. But in reality, there is value there. I mean, that's where the eyeballs are nowadays. So it's great to hear that inbound is coming through social media.
It is, and I would love to sit and talk with someone who thinks social media is a waste of time in 2024, right? It's a multi-trillion dollar industry, and influencer marketing is through the roof, multi-billion, at this point. So it's one of those things you evolve or you don't. And mails are dead. I won't say that like cold calling's dead, because I know a lot of people still have success for it, but it's a lot more squeeze for not a lot of juice.
Hmm.
And I'd rather connect with people on an ethos level at scale than to try to go and peddle my wares one to one.
Yeah. No, no, it's so true. I agree with you completely. Are there any specific habits or traits you feel that have helped you in business, or even maybe just on the personal side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that there's, especially on the personal side, it's not something that I'm great with because I get stuck in work, but having balance and having routine is incredibly important. My mornings are sacred to me. I really enjoy my morning with my animals and my tea and my walks. So, being able to honor the things that my body and my mind actually need to be productive and not treating myself as a machine to like serve, right? I really want my work to serve my life. I want my work to serve my team and my clients and not, be a dependent that I have to constantly cater to. And at the point that it ever does, I think it's, what can I do now? This is not how I want to live my life. On the work side, I think it's incredibly important to block out your time. It's so easy to become reactionary in this work. It's so easy to I could come in here with no plan for the day and sit down and have a very full day if I'm just responding to things that are happening.
Hmm.
Um, but then you're not really growing in the background. And while I'm not perfect at maintaining those routines, especially this time of year, we are incredibly busy, making sure that we're always looking ahead and then I'm blocking out time for, creating good content, building new relationships, right? Planting seeds for the future has been critical to me. So I don't stop and look up and go, wait a minute, I hadn't thought about today because I was so busy with yesterday.
Yeah. Speaking of creating good content, do you have a method, like maybe you like to sit down and just brainstorm and jot some ideas, or what do you typically do for that?
I like to work as little as possible for the most output. So I typically will, same notes app that I have, if I think of something for content or if I'm having a conversation with a client, they're like, oh my God, I didn't know that. I'm like, you didn't? So I'll write it down. Like maybe other people don't either. I just kind of keep some of those going. But I think because we're early in the conversation, that idea of like food and listening to things and being
Hmm.
really active and being a discerning consumer of information, that I always have something I want to talk about. Like there's so much to share, right? If you
Hmm.
have this abundance mindset. And so I find it very, very simple on days I'm feeling creative to go and just schedule out a whole bunch of posts or content, right? Or at least start the framework for them if I have a creative post. A lot of times I just repurpose content. If it did really well, I'll take a text post and put it into like a carousel, for example. So it's thinking about, what did my team learn from me? What did I learn from my team? What would I have wanted to hear, if I was, 24 and starting my career, and being able to share that.
Do you ever share any personal side, or is it mostly just business?
No, no, the internet does not get that access to me.
So just business.
Totally just business. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. No,
I mean,
everyone.
there's certainly pieces of me in it, right? I mean, everything that you see of me on the internet is very authentically me. It's my passion, it's my voice, but it's just what the topics that I choose are
Yeah.
solely focused on my work.
You were just mentioning how important your morning is, and that's your sort of sacred time. What does your typical morning look like?
Um, it's pretty routine. I wake up and I have some animals that putter behind me, and I have my breakfast on my roof deck typically when the weather permits. So this time of year, of course. I have a darling pit bull, so she goes a little waddle with me. She's old. And sometimes I might read something, sometimes I'll do a little yoga. Um, but usually I'll call a friend in the morning. I have a couple of friends that I'll call, but podcasts, like, so it's just that time to kind of get outside. And I think that a lot of us like wake up and immediately grab a coffee and get into production mode, but there's a circadian rhythm that happens and your day's more productive and lovely and your brain's happy if you just kind of ease into the day. So that's how I spend mine.
I agree. I mean, I like to wake up early. As I mentioned, I have three boys, so I like to get up before everyone's still asleep in my house. I do my workout and my coffee later while I'm doing their breakfast and preparing them to school. But my wife tells me you can clearly see. She's like, "Oh, you didn't work out today, right?" Just because sometimes in the evening I'm maybe a little bit more snappier with them, or my patience is not there, and it's my me time, my morning time. I have to have it.
You sort of fall out of line with yourself, right?
Yeah.
you don't create that space, it's, you know, and I, you know, as a parent, right, or as a leader, as a husband, all of these things that you have these responsibilities to people around you, and you have a responsibility for how you show up, right? And it's, you know, your partner's noticing that. So I think it's just important to be very protective of what you need and keep your energy here. When someone comes in with other stuff, be like, keep that shit out of here. We're vibing over here, right? Like I worked real hard on all of this. Have you read the book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker?
I have not. No, first time I've heard of it.
I love it. It's such a good book. He has studied sleep and has taught sleep, and he goes behind just all of the science behind how our brain works, along with like melatonin and the circadian rhythm, and like how modern society impacts it. And you're reading it, you know, like sitting going to bed and reading it. And I'm like, I want to read another chapter, but like I also feel like I need to go to sleep, right? So it's really difficult to get through because you know, he's selling sleep the whole book. But it's just a really interesting look at it. And especially as a parent, talks a lot about how sleep impacts kids at different, you know, ages when they have to wake up so early and go to school. So it might be something you're into.
Yeah, I definitely need to work on my sleep. I need to get more of it. I don't know how much sleep you get, but every morning I look at my smart watch and my deep sleep is like, okay, I need to work on just overall how many hours I get.
Yeah, I think it's so underrated, and we have this society that's like sleep less and work harder, but I can't do anything for you if I'm tired, you know? So
Yeah, I love that you have a pit bull. How old is your dog?
unclear. She's an adopted dog, and they always tell you they're two when you get them, and they're never two. So
You know what? It's so funny. We adopted our pit. She was supposedly a year and a half. We've had her now. She's almost 7. But everyone tells us they're like, I think she's older than 7. I'm like, no, because she has a little bit more white hair and on her muzzle. And I'm like, okay, maybe she's 8 or 10, who knows? But she's still with us. She still sort of walks a little bit okay. One of her back legs is not the best. But I think pits are known for that.
yeah, exactly.
But they're the best. Like my wife and I were talking, like, okay, we adopt another dog, not anytime soon, even though they want to. It has to be another pit.
They're very sweet and so good with kids.
Yeah, they are. They're the best. What would you say is your biggest challenge um, with your role today at Backroom?
It's a great question because I just got back from vacation and nothing went wrong and no one needed me. So I'm like, can I maybe retire? I think I don't know. I think you've caught me in sort of this weird moment where there's not a ton. Well, I will say this. I'm at a stage right now where I'm reflecting on doing all of this alone and wondering um you know, what the experience would be like with a partner or with additional help, right? Because you kind of turn into mama bird. I keep clients happy and my team happy and paid, and you know, and someone's, you know, burned out and you gotta go fix that, right? And then like this, you know,
Mhm.
account says the invoices aren't getting paid, so I gotta go help with that. And you know, bringing business in. So, you know, it gets very it's like being a parent, right? Like it gets very taxing. You just, you know, want to go to the bathroom in peace kind of feeling, right? So I think having someone else to make tough decisions with would be, I wouldn't say it's a challenge, but it would be nice.
Yeah, to take some of that burden and weight off your shoulders sometimes.
And even if it's not even the burden of having to execute on the decision, just having someone else's brain in it with me would be nice. So I'm very proud of the success that I've had, and I adore the team, and I think that we'll continue to do great things. But every now and then I want to be like, what do you think we should do? Right. So
Yeah, yeah. What do you know now, Kara, that you wish you would have known at the start of your career?
that the perfection that I hold myself to is not necessary, that my 40% is most people's 100%. I did not have to work as hard as I did on a lot of things and really stress myself. So I think it's to sum that up, it's thinking more about what's going to generate revenue versus what's going to check a box for me. Because what I want and what I would expect is not always what the client would expect. And being able to really understand, like, does this part actually matter, or are they more interested in this? And looking at what's going to get the job done. Um, I I am incredibly type A perfectionist, and that can be very dangerous when you're in business, because it doesn't always, usually it doesn't have to be that, right? It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be like your standard, it has to be what the client wants. and their definition of perfect is different than mine. So I think, being able to really like listen and understand what somebody's looking for versus what I think it should be has been a very humbling and powerful lesson for me throughout the years.
Being in the industry for such a long time, have you had any mentors? And if so, what did you learn from them?
Oh, always have mentors. Yes. I have so many. I just have this like clan of folks I can, text or ask questions to. I learn things every single week. I have, people with legal background, people with investing background, people with marketing background, people who have built up agencies from nothing, people have sold their agencies. Some of my clients have become mentors. So, yes, I think having a rich network of people that not only know specialty areas way more than you do, but aren't attached to your business is so important because they don't have the emotions that you do about your business.
Hmm.
So you're sitting up freaking out in the fetal position about something that's going wrong, and then you like tell your attorney and they're like, oh yeah, that's what you do, right? And then it's just all the emotion gets removed, right? Where you take it to your finance guy and he's looking at a spreadsheet, he's like, oh well, just do that again, and it's like, oh, so we tend to get really tied up in the emotion of everything, but having those mentors to be sort of a guide and a benchmark is, I mean, I wouldn't do this without them.
I love that. Coming to an end here soon, what does the next couple of years look like for you in Backroom? What are you most excited about?
Well, you'll have to wait and see.
Oh,
Um, Keep an eye on my LinkedIn for more details.
something coming out later this year or?
No, really, this quarter for us every year is our busiest. We onboard the most new clients every single October. So I mean, we've just had consistent growth, and we're just maintaining that and scaling up the team. But yeah, that's kind of it for us for the next few months. Nothing new. We've accomplished so much this year, including launching and maintaining a private community. We started doing LinkedIn cohorts. We have two newsletters that we've launched. We maintain our own socials. We just have so many things that we've accomplished this year that now let's take really good care of our clients, keep an eye on growth for 2025. And that's keeping us pretty busy.
This LinkedIn cohort you mentioned it already before. What is it about?
So it's essentially my playbook for how I've been able to build pipeline and personal brand through LinkedIn. And we
Hmm.
maxed it at 30 people. We did one in August. We may do one more this year. So it's sort of an ad hoc 4-week program that we do for some of the members of my community.
That's great. So you're teaching them basically the whole playbook and how can they replicate it for their own, of
Exactly.
course.
Developing your story to content publishing to how to engage with your community, all of it. Mhm.
That's great. How has that been going? Did you just start this a while ago or how recent, this cohorts?
Just started it. We launched it in July. We ran it in August and it maxed out. So I was like, this would be cool if we got 6 or 8 people and we had a full cohort.
Wow.
It
That's
was
amazing. Congrats.
thanks. It's humbling, and I learned a lot in it myself. So we had a good time, and you never know if what your methods are going to work for other people, and then they did. So it's been a joy because you want to see the people around you succeed. So yeah, we're very fortunate to have that group.
That's amazing. Is there something, Kara, that I didn't ask and that I should have asked that maybe you want to highlight or mention?
No, I think I'll just say in closing that I think like the remote work piece, gets talked about a lot. I had spoken about that a little bit earlier, and I think that if there's a takeaway, it's not that remote work is a thing to do. I ask leadership to look at their teams and listen. And that doesn't mean that you're catering to every need that they have, right? But to really understand and have a finger on the pulse of what does it feel like to work here? What is the experience of working here? And aiming to make that better for your team. Not altruistically, because it will make you more money. Happy, healthy employees are productive and they stay and there's less churn. And I just think everyone wins when we look out for each other. And sometimes that's a remote environment and sometimes it's not. So it's really the heart of why people make decisions for remote or 4-day work week like we were doing too, is because it's what worked for us. And I think it's really important to stop and look around at the people that we have on our teams and honor them.
That's great. When you're not busy working and growing Backroom, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
I like to cook. I like to spend time with my animals. Just I'm very low-key introvert, so nothing wild.
How many animals do you have besides the pit?
I also have a cat.
Oh, how do they get along?
They
Love and hate
ignore each
relationship?
other. Well, they ignore each other for the most part, but they're sweet.
Oh, really? Okay. That's good to hear. My pit, when it comes when she see cats or out, we're just out and walking and there's sometimes cats and she goes crazy. Same thing with bunnies.
Poor thing.
Yeah, that's great. Kara, people want to learn more about you and Backroom. Where can they go to and find out more information, please?
KaraRedman.com. So Kara with a K. And my LinkedIn, of course, is another great place. My handle is at Kara Redman, so pretty easy to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was nice to see you.
Nice. Take care.
Bye.